Welcome to Blockchain Week. Today, our sessions are brought to you proudly by CoinSpot. We have some panelists here today. They're going to speak to you about behind the NFT curtain with some project founders. We have our speaker, Betty. She's a founder of Deadfellaz. We have Will from The Littles, and our moderator, Carly Reilly. She's a host from Overpriced JPEGs. So over to you, Carly.
Thank you, Reilly. Thank you, everyone. It's so lovely to be here, though virtually. I'm going to dive right in because I know we're running a tight ship here. So I want to start, Will and Betty, to give you each a moment to explain to folks sort of what your project is and specifically what led you to launch an NFT project. What was really the inspiration there? Betty, why don't we start with you?
Okay, sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. It's especially nice to be involved in something Australia-based. It's very nice. So the reason I started an NFT project was I have been in creative production for years with my husband and co-founder, Syke. He had been introduced to NFTs earlier last year, January last year, and was just constantly approached to be the artist on these NFT projects. I was getting very into these projects, but I didn't see anything that represented me. I didn't see anything that I wanted to use as my profile picture or that represented a wide spectrum of gender. So we just created one ourselves, and we just kind of, injected all of our inspirations, all of the things that make us happy, 90s animation and all different genres of music and all kinds of things, and Deadfellaz was born, and the rest is history, and we're having a really great time. That's it in a nutshell.
I love it. We'll dive deeper on all of that. You and I have spoken before, so I know I know your origin story a bit, so we'll talk about it. But Will, same question to you. What inspired you to launch a project? You've actually, I know, posted publicly about feeling like projects should fill a void. So would love maybe to hear you talk about your inspiration and what void you felt like you could fill with The Littles.
For sure. Thanks for having me and moderating, of course. For me, I started this journey degenning like I think everyone else. And for me, I'm very special because I was able to bring my spouse, Cass, into this degen movement with me. So every time we put the kids to bed, we would bring out our laptops and we would be like scrolling through different traits of like Cool Cats, the Vogoos, like we're way back. And for me, it was just so much fun and so much joy because on a daily basis, there's really not much that would allow us to be able to escape and just escape in time. And we're not gamers, so it's not something that we really am able to escape into. And then fast forward a few weeks, months, we were bringing our daughter out to the playground, and we were seeing her interact with other kids, and the way that she was doing it was in such a pure, raw, authentic way, and yet at the same time super magical. And for me, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's the exact moment that I feel when I'm interacting with these NFTs, these JPEGs, like this long forgotten moments. And I'm like, that's exactly what I want to bring to my own collection, to bring it to the world, is this essence of pureness. Now, what you also mentioned is that having this inspiration is great, but at the same time, we must be able to find a problem within the marketplace and provide a solution in order for us to have a reason to exist. And at that point in time, there was a lot of different projects, tokens that have their own ecosystem, but not really one that would act as an inflection point for all these other ecosystems. And so that's the reason why we set out to solve that problem, to accept other projects' tokens into our ecosystem, thus becoming a solution to their problem. And so far, we have 4 official partners: CyberKongs, Kaiju King, Subducks, and Cool Cats.
Awesome. Betty, you come from a background, I know, of really helping global brands build their brand. You come from a very sort of traditional brand building background. How do you feel like building an NFT brand differs or is similar to the traditional brand building world that you come from?
So I actually think that my combination of skills in community building, both on a corporate level and on a grassroots level, have resulted in me being able to do this well. So while I do this and have worked on things for large brands. At the same time, like I have worked at a grassroots community level, organizing for women and gender diverse people locally, you know, getting mutual aid, organizing connections and that sort of thing. So I think that the combination of both of those things is really where I found that sweet spot that the NFT community really flourishes in, because it really is kind of a combination of both of those things, you know. And it's something that we focus on. We'll focus on small community focused activations to allow people to connect on a really emotional level, but then also those larger scale brand connections as well. So there's always kind of two currents going. And I think because I'm able to move in both, it's really benefited us personally. It's definitely very different to traditional business. I'm keen to hear what Will says about this as well.
Yeah, Will, why don't you answer that as well? And would love to hear what some of you think those key differences are. I'm sure there's people in the audience like debating launching a project who come from the traditional world and are curious about the differences and similarities specifically.
I think that by the way, Betty, I learned so much from you. I study your stuff and you do it in such a great fashion. It's something that I draw a lot of inspiration from you, just so you know. I'm a fan.
Thank you so
Don't
much.
we all?
For sure. In terms of similarity, in terms of running a NFT project, I think there's a lot of similarities. For me, I've been running businesses for the last 10 years, 2 different exits. So for us to grow and start that process, I treat this like a business rather than just a art-based project. And I think that's what allowed us to grow a community and also being able to assemble a team in a very fast manner. The difference when it comes down to Web3 is the transparency you need and the work ethic that you need to have is completely different, because both a double-edged sword of being so close to your community is the fact that you can get live feedback on stuff that you do, good or the bad, right? So if it's the good, like great, you're the hero for the day. If it's bad, you're the villain for a long, long time. And so, and it's tough, especially in a leadership role. Your head needs to be very clear in terms of what the strategy is, what's the long-term vision. And a lot of times, if you get sucked into the community, just answering to the very foresight of what's happening, it's hard to drive that ship moving forward emotionally. And I think that's kind of something that a lot of other projects have been doing really well and transitioning into. For example, like Cool Cats, they hired a CEO to have the executive team in place, thus having a buffer for the founder's vision to flourish and to have the executive team to actually manage the operation side of things.
When you say you treat it like a business, and you talk about this long-term vision, like, do you have like a brand identity book and quarterly planning and, here's where we're going to be in 5 years and we're going to hit these numbers? Like, is it fully traditional for you in that sense? And Betty, I want to ask you the same question, but Will, while you're here, let me ask you.
Not as extreme as that, because in NFTs, it's like, to be completely frank with you, no one knows what they're doing. Everyone's just trying different things out and see what sticks, and to see whether you have the ability to execute on your vision and whether the market will have demand for it. Having the plans and the systems in place is great, but also the flexibility to go wild. What we have is so incredible, because typically in Web 2, it's all about finding the product market fit. People spend millions of dollars trying to find that product market fit, and yet they fail. Whereas in Web 3, we don't need to find the product market fit. We need to build a strong community, and then we try different things out to see what sticks. And that's what's the beauty about Web 3, in my opinion, and the difference.
Yeah, that is just a really good point, and exactly what I was going to say. So the flexibility of it is not for everyone, because while I have a very clear vision of where I want our brand to go and what I want to see from Deadfellaz, at the same time, we don't have access to the same traditional data sets that you would have in a normal brand building exercise. We don't, you know, all of that information is not harvested. It's all very much anonymous. But as we're responding directly to that community response, because we are so accessible and we're so involved, we adapt and we predict and we move with that, which is, it's very fun being on the forefront of something and having the ability to shift things and to make waves and to, it's very creative. I don't know, it can be a stressful place to be as well, so I don't think it is for everyone. But I do flourish in that sort of environment, so I do have fun with it. It's kind of like you're no longer responding to something that you see, oh, this is what I should do. It's like this circular value exchange, and you're constantly learning from the community that you've built, but then responding to their needs and then maybe introducing something new. And it's very fluid, fun place to be. But I think that it could be stressful for traditional marketers.
Well, and what you're describing, it feels like is something much more personal. Instead of going off of their social media data because you have their email address, or, you know, have like all this lists of their data that you can then mine for data sets of information. You were talking about getting to know them in a Discord channel and having this sort of breathing dialogue with them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, I know my community. I know who they are. I know what they like. I know what they do. I speak to them every day. And there are pros and cons to being that accessible as a founder of something. Like, there, you know, you typically can't have a one-on-one conversation with the founder of a brand that you love. That's very, very not normal in Web 2. But in Web 3, it is typical, and it's something that benefits us. And I think it brings humanity back to things, which I think is the right way forward. I think it's a lovely thing, to be honest. I really like it. I'm all about relationships, and I enjoy getting to know the people that I work with.
My AirPods just gave out. Has this changed? Can everybody still hear everything okay? Nothing's coming through weird?
No, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So we're just going to forego the AirPods. Sorry if that was something that was helpful. Let's stick on this because, you know, as we talked about this session, I felt like it was important to both talk strategically how you think about things, and then also get into the personal side of this and almost the emotional side of running a project, which we've started to kind of tap into. Betty, as you're talking about this, what have you found to be sort of the biggest challenges on your mental and or maybe physical health since launching a project, and how do you manage them, or how are you learning to manage those challenges?
I think that the pros of being so accessible and being so visible, there comes a lot of cons. So while I can be building away in the background, you know, working extremely, extremely hard, you can be inundated with all of these, like, when this, when that, when you're not doing this, you're not doing that, I think you should do this. And it's kind of like, it's hard because there is that constant pressure there. And, you know, I'm only human, and Will and I have spoken about this with other founders. It's a shared experience. While I am fairly great at managing that sort of thing, mostly because I have 3 young children, so I have been conditioned for it. It does get hard sometimes to deal with that, knowing that you know, I know what's coming and I know what I'm working on, but I'm sometimes not able to communicate that. And yeah, it's a whole thing. I think every founder will tell you the same thing if they're being honest there.
Is there a hardest decision, Will, or there's a hard decision that you can point to during this journey since launching your project that you're like, oh, that was the hardest decision I had to make, and here's why I made it, and what it was?
Before I answer that question, I'd love to be able to echo what Betty was saying about this juggling and how I resonate with it, because literally 2 hours ago, I just wrote a thread saying that I quit. Clickbait, by the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Clickbait, by
Good.
the way. No. And it really stemmed from the last week of experience that I had, mainly because of for us, we just had we were just celebrating a major milestone for us, which is a partnership with Time Studio, to create a children's animation series based upon The Littles. And this is something that I'm like, I would never ever dream of. And I'm like, holy crap, that's so cool. And it's such a big achievement by all standards. News dropped. We were super anticipating, like, whoa, this is so cool. Within the day, people were already asking, hey, when's utility? When's this? When's that? And then it's just like, I'm just very demotivated after that, to be completely honest with you, because it's like, we're not celebrating the wins as much as we should, and these things take a lot of time for Betty, for her to think about something, for her to execute on it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's done, when's the next thing? And the market just absorbs it like a sponge. It's a really big hit for a lot of founders, I feel, and aside from, like, I think a lot of founders can resonate to that.
Well,
And I just want to share
congratulations.
that.
And thank you for sharing that. I think hearing
Yeah.
those specific examples are really helpful for other people, again, thinking about getting into this, or already who are founders themselves, who like
Mhm.
it hits your self-esteem, and it's like, no, everyone's dealing
No,
with this, that the
everyone's
market's
dealing with
demands are
it.
only getting crazier. And yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, if to think about a 4-month-old business or project, for that sake, having a partnership with Time Studio, like a decade-old iconic brand out there. This is like, in Web 2, this is a big achievement that a lot of people would celebrate. But in Web 3, it's really weird. And I wrote that post mainly to share with people that it's okay to go through these moments. Just put your head down, continue building, be communicative of what your plan is, and the people that enjoy, the people that find what you're doing aligned with your values, they'll be along the ride. And fortunately for us, we have very good supporters, and I just wanted to share that story with you. Now
I
back to your
appreciate that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Back to your question about the hardest decision that we had to make. One of the hardest ones was when when our Discord got hacked. Is to figure out, how do I navigate this kind of mess of paying people back with the project funds, paying people back with personal funds. Should we paying people back? And I think it's a really tight rope that you're maneuvering around, because there's 3 different kind of perspectives that are on 3 different corners. One being the community itself. It's like, hey, if your Discord got hacked, it's unfortunate for the people that got hacked, because they were not informed. They should be responsible. Now, on the other hand, me as a project founder, I need to be responsible for my community, and we got hacked. We need to be responsible. Yet there's also the personal side of things, where I'm like, hey, you know what? They should be responsible. So there's a lot of tug of war there. And at the end of the day, we had to make amends to a lot of people. Not a lot of people. We got hacked for 2 minutes or so, and overall it was handled well in a way. But there came to be a lot of compromises on my personal end. But it was a
You
decision
made
that
the
we had to
decision
make.
to refund folks, or to
Yeah. We kind of, we're like, hey, you know what? We're in it for the long haul. We need to make people right, and it was a decision that we had to make. And and I wrote a thread about how we handled the whole situation, being as communicative as possible, taking proactive measures to inform people that, hey, you know what, we're working behind the scenes. Although, we're not replying you every single minute, we're working and just keeping people up to tabs, right? And our plan of action. And I think a lot of people and a lot of founders don't have the professionalism to share with people, because that's what they needed at that time.
Mm-hmm. We only have a couple minutes left. Betty, I wanted to ask, if you're talking to somebody at this point in the market cycle, where there's a lot of projects out there, and you're talking to somebody who's debating whether or not to launch their own NFT project, what would you want to hear? What would make you tell them to go for it, versus maybe saying, hey, wait, spend a little more time, think about this more? what are you, what is your advice as people maybe are already approaching you saying, should I launch my project?
I think we've entered a new phase of NFT projects where we are now vying for attention. It's the attention economy, much the same as was in Web 2. So if you are wanting to launch a project with the intention of running a brand, which is essentially what happens if you're launching a PFP project with so many NFTs, that is what people expect now. So if you are ready to enter into that, I'd say have a plan, like bolster yourself with a plan. How are you going to compete? Because it is a very competitive space now. I mean, it was back when we launched, and now even more so. And people do jump from the next thing to the next thing so very quickly. But then how do you become that one that buries deep under the ground and stays the course, So I think that going back to what Will had said earlier in the chat about finding the problem in the market, find the problem in the market, but make sure that you yourself are very passionate about that, so that when it does get hard, like we've spoken about today, that is like a driving factor for you to continue, because this is a very challenging space to work in. It's very, very new. And, everything can be flipped in the matter of a couple of minutes. It's, be very passionate about it and be very determined in what you're going to do. It's not really something that you can come into in like a wishy-washy, one toe in type thing anymore, I don't think. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Final thoughts from either of you? Will, if you want to respond to that or have anything else you want to impart as we look to wrap here?
No, this space is beautiful. As much as I say I quit, I'm not going to quit. I'm just joking. Rather, I'm quitting my other businesses to double down into this, because I believe this is such a beautiful space. Incredible to be able to meet other founders. Everyone is so willing to help. And I think we're in a very special time frame, also a very narrow window for people who are creative, people who are passionate builders to come in and try it out for themselves to see if it is for them or not.
Betty, any final thoughts on your end that you want to share?
Just to echo what Will has said, it is a really beautiful space to be working with other founders like this. Like, we have ongoing chats with all of the founders from most of the projects that you'll know, and we share support and advice, and so those communities are there as well, not just the NFT communities that are consuming these NFTs. Like it is very much like one big network, and once you become involved in that, it kind of sucks you in completely. But it is a beautiful thing. Like, I have never had so many amazing supportive relationships in my life. It's fantastic. So yeah.
Well, thank you both so much. Really, I so appreciate both your projects and also both of your vulnerability, and you speak very publicly about the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows. And I think that's so important. So thank you for the service you do this space. And I'll wrap here because I know we're a few minutes over. I think I pause and thank everyone for coming.